We hear the word self-confidence all the time, but what does it really mean? And how that leads to believing and trusting ourselves, which leads to self-love. Let's explore that. But first, what is self-confidence? For me, self-confidence is the belief that I'm capable, I'm worthy, and I'm equipped to handle life's challenges. And for you, it might mean something different, but I think ultimately is the ability to trust ourselves that we can handle life. We can handle difficult moments and we'll come on the other side better and stronger. This is self-confidence, in my opinion. Without confidence, we often doubt ourselves, which leads to second guessing our ability and relying on others for validation. And also, I think self-confidence contributes a lot to analysis paralysis and when you can't make decisions. Because when someone is confident, they make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, they just don't think like that. They think, you know what, whatever it is, even if it's a mistake or the wrong decision, whatever the outcome, I'll be able to handle that. I'll be able to pivot afterwards. Ultimately, if you're not confident, you will be stuck in that mode of analysis paralysis, and you'll be second guessing, am I going to make the right decision? Is this the right decision? And then you rely on validation from the outside world when it comes to your ability and who you are. And this is ultimately a very difficult way of living because as adults, we need to make decisions constantly. We make so many decisions in any given day. And if you want to grow in life, that takes a lot of decision making. The more confident you are, you're going to be able to handle even the wrong decisions. And I'm putting in quotation because for me, there's no wrong decisions. We're exactly where we need to be in life. If it's something that didn't work out because of a decision you made, then you make the best out of it and learn from that mistake if you think it was a mistake. But ultimately, we need the self-confidence to make decisions. When we build self-confidence, we strengthen the foundation of self-trust because then we trust ourselves. Okay, I trust myself that I can make this decision. I trust myself that if this doesn't work, I can pivot. I trust myself that even if it's a mistake, I'll be fine no matter what. So that is how self-confidence really leads and is the foundation of self-trust. And self-trust is an essential part of self-love because people that love themselves trust themselves. They believe in themselves. They're confident in who they are. Confidence is also accepting all the parts of yourself. And that takes a lot of bravery, be able to look inside, connect with who you are, like who you are, and love who you are. Means we believe in ourselves enough to know that no matter what happens, we'll figure things out and be okay. Practice 1, taking action, even when we are unsure. There are a lot of moments in life, in my life, I'm sure in your life, where you have to make decisions, but you're not 100% sure. But taking action, even when you're unsure, instead of being stuck in analysis paralysis and not making a decision. And that is when comes this moment where it's like a crossroads. Are you going to be stuck in analysis paralysis and not make the decision? Or you're going to make the decision, even if you're unsure, and trust that you will be okay. Confidence doesn't come from waiting until we feel 100% sure about the decision and then make it. Confidence comes from doing, just making the decision, taking the leap of faith. There was this really nice quote with an image with an eagle and a nest and a baby eagle. And the baby eagle says, I'm scared. What if I die? And the mom says, what if you fly? And it's the same way. We have to take action, before we're ready, before we feel ready. Because if we are waiting to feel ready, that is when we're stuck in analysis paralysis, because our brain will just go nuts and will find every excuse on the book why this is not 100% sure, why it's not going to work. And it'll be just like ruminating and recycling these thoughts. And then will be days and months and sometimes years before taking an action. So also, it's better late than never. So if you're procrastinating and not taking an action on something, just go and do it. And better late than never. So confidence doesn't come from waiting, right? Every time we take a step forward, even in uncertainty, we prove to ourselves that we're capable. So in that proof bank or jar, whatever you want to call it, you deposit decisions that you're taking step forward. And literally, if you want to do this, we had this success jar at home and we had a gratitude jar as well with my son. So take a jar and then put next to it post-it notes and a pen. So you have it ready. And every time you make a decision, write it down, fold it, put it in the jar, and start seeing how much the jar will fill up. And every time you're doubting yourself, go back to the jar, read some of them and see. And that reflection back, looking at these notes and just reading and seeing, okay, I made this decision to post a YouTube video. And remember that moment. What is the worst that can happen? Probably nothing. And that is also very helpful to think, what is the worst that can happen? With big decisions, that's how I make decisions, because sometimes in our head, it's like, oh my gosh, this big story, like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen if I post this and then a bunch of comments, and or I buy this apartment and then I have buyer's remorse and whatever, and I'm broke and blah, 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 and all these exaggerations in our head. But then think back and say, okay, what is the worst that can happen? What is the worst that can happen when I post this video and I get bad comments? So what? Are you not going to be able to survive? Okay, you're going to feel bad for a day or two. You might delete the video. Nothing. Just your ego will be a little bit bruised. Then you're going to dust it off and move on. Developing that thick skin is crucial in life. And that only happens with making decisions. Okay. Every time we take a step forward, even in uncertain, we prove to ourselves that we're capable. This simple act of following through builds trust in our ability and strengthens our belief in ourselves. Again, only by taking action, taking small steps forward. Use the jar if you want to use the jar, but just know that it starts with a simple, small step, which brings me to the next practice, which is celebrating small wins, which leads me to a quote. I think it's from The Art of War. Every journey of 1,000 miles or kilometers starts with a simple step, one step at a time, one decision at a time. That's how you build self-confidence. Next practice, celebrating the small wins. How many of us are guilty of that? We go and slay all day long out there in the world, and we rarely look back, congratulate ourselves, and celebrate the small wins. Only we wait these big events to happen so we can celebrate. But when you have your confidence jar or decision jar, whatever you want to call it, this is a good way to look back, read it. It's important because every time we acknowledge our progress, no matter how big or small, we send ourselves a message that we're capable and worthy. Just by sitting and acknowledging what we did, we say, wow, I did this. I'm capable. I'm worthy. I did this success list for my son and wrote all the things that he had achieved that were difficult. Not like trophies and stuff, but things that he broke his knee and he had 2 surgeries. And the way he handled this, he was such a trooper, and he was 12 years old. And every time he doubts himself or he says like something is difficult, I just remind him, and I have it written on the list on his desk, but I remind him like, Remember who did that? You. And that is not a small win. This is gigantic. So that gives him this belief that, you know what? If I did this, I can do this. This is a piece of cake. So acknowledge your progress, no matter how big or small. And that will send a message to your brain that you're capable and worthy. And when we take time to reflect on our success, we remind ourselves of our strength, which naturally builds confidence. Very often we go through the day, we don't think about our strengths, but by sitting and reflecting, and that's why it's very important to reflect. Journaling or meditation, or just walk without music and headphones and lyrics and podcasts, but just like walking and reflecting on the strengths, that will naturally build our self-confidence. And over time, these small wins, they add up. Just like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, that's the same way. When they add up, it reinforces our ability to trust ourselves. That's how we start, with one step. The third practice is reframing our failures as learning experiences. They're no mistakes, they're only lessons. Just remember, we are exactly in life where we need to be. Even if you look back in something that you thought was a mistake, you would not want it to be any other way because of the lesson that you learned or the things in the long run that you gained. One of the biggest obstacles to self-confidence is fear of failure. There are a lot of people that have fear of success also, but fear of failure is very common. And growing up, I think if we were raised in a home where mistakes were viewed as something bad, you were expected to be perfect with perfect grades or perfect performance. I think that's very often when we develop this fear of failure and seeing mistakes and failure as something bad, and not allowing ourselves grace when we make mistakes and we fail. I used to do this thing with my son. In the evening, we will sit and I'll ask him, like, okay, what did you fail today? How did you fail? And he will be like, oh, like, I wrote this thing, but I don't know, the teacher said like it was the wrong idea or whatever. And I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, what lesson are you learning from this? It's paying attention more to what the teacher is giving as an exercise or whatever that might be. And I think that's a great way with children to learn that failure, it's part of life. It just shows you how to pivot next time, what to do differently next time. It's not something like, oops, I failed, I'm not going to try again. One of the biggest obstacles to self-confidence is the fear of failure. And the truth is, everyone makes mistakes. What sets confident people apart is that they don't see failure as the end. They see it as a learning experience and just a way to pivot and taking notes on how to do it differently next time. When we reframe our failures as lessons, we take the power away from them, because all of this is fear of failure, fear of taking the next step in case we fail. So when we say, you know what, there's no failure, it's just a lesson, it's just like the fear somehow goes away. So by trusting that we can learn from the mistake or the failure, if it happens, if it goes wrong, and grow from that experience, we build the confidence to try again and to keep moving forward. Practice number 4, letting go of perfectionism. How many times, especially, let's say with video, because that's what I've been doing all my life. A lot of people don't post videos because they're just not perfect. They have this idea of being perfect or themselves being perfect. I was one of them. That's why I stopped reading the self-help books years ago. I still read a lot of those, but I stopped until I reframed my perspective, because I kept reading these books and thinking that I have to become this perfect version, like this creature that is so perfect. I didn't even know what I wanted to become. Like, I had this idea of, I gotta perfect myself. I gotta read these books, find what I'm doing wrong, and then fix that in me and become that perfect person, and then go get that boyfriend or get that job or get that promotion or go for this thing. And this is a miserable way of doing, because we are on this earth to learn. We'll never be perfect. We're not born perfect. We'll never, ever be perfect. We can only accept our shortcomings and build confidence despite our shortcomings by accepting them and live our best life. But waiting for someone to tell us in a book how to perfect and fix ourselves is just unattainable, because it's like opening a can of worms. It's exactly like an onion, like the onion analogy. After one layer, another layer. And those books are really helpful, and I still read them, but my perspective is different. I'm reading them as, oh, okay, I see this could help me to change my perspective and live a better life. But I don't beat myself. Perfectionism, it's a trap. It's not attainable. We're born not perfect. We're dying not perfect. And just changing our perspective on that, it's really important. And I work at a TV station, and I used to edit a lot before. And yes, like the videos have to hold certain standards, but I know I was like struggling a lot with that, because I had to perfect every video, every graphic. And one day I just said, you know what? Done is better than perfect. And I just relaxed about it. And it was uncomfortable in the beginning, but I was able to do more videos. They were a lot more fun because I was not stressing over or overthinking details. It freed up some time so I can experiment with different transitions and graphics and so on. But this goes in life too. Done is better than perfect. And that it's somehow related to the mistakes and failures, because if we say, okay, done is better than perfect, and we post the video or we open that art exhibit or finish the painting, and then we're like, okay, I could have do this, I could have do that. But then you're like, you know what? Even if I didn't do this and that, it's done. I'll be able to survive. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. That's a good question to ask ourselves. What is the worst that can happen? And so perfectionism is a trap that keeps us from believing in ourselves, because we are not really making decisions. And also, we need to accept that we don't need to be perfect or put out the perfect work to be worthy. And actually, it gives more flavor to a person when accepts their mistakes, and it just enriches you as a person, and it's more interesting and more easy to be around people. I don't like being around perfect people that do perfect things, because it's a lot of stress for me. I'm not a perfectionist, I recovered from that, but being around perfect people is just stressing me out a lot, because I know it's expected a lot. I know mistakes will not be tolerated, and I'm full of flaws, and I'm not perfect at all. And it's really stressful. So all my friends and people that I hang out with, they're not perfectionists. I think it was just like natural selection for me. Whoever was giving me stress, I was just like veered off. They're now acquaintances, but not friends. We have to accept that we don't need to be perfect in order to be worthy of love, worthy of promotion, worthy of whatever that might be. We release ourselves from the pressure to be perfect. And that's when true confidence and self-love can flourish. Because self-love cannot happen if you expect it to be perfect. And if you think you're perfect or will be perfect, and then you're going to love yourself, that will never happen. You're better off accepting your imperfections and fall in love with your nuanced self that is weaved with imperfections. Last practice, trusting our inner voice. As women, we have more intuition. Intuition and inner voice, I would say, is the same thing. And very often we have that intuition and that inner voice telling us to do something, but we don't trust it. We go and ask people, we journal, we meditate over, we walk, rinse and repeat. Usually, I don't know about you, but me, when I have that intuition about something and I overthink about it, I usually go back to that decision. And that was the right one. A lot of us have suppressed intuition since we were children because we were told what to do. So most of my life, I always listened to myself. And of course, that clashed a lot with my mom because she wanted me to become something else, work something else, but I always listened to my intuition. Even to this day, my family, many of the times, do not understand what the heck I'm doing and why I'm deciding this thing and why I'm making steps towards this thing. And I just doesn't matter to me. I just know that it's my life and I just make the decisions based on my intuition and what I want. And so our inner voice, it's usually spot on. And we need to learn to listen to our inner voice and not questioning it all that much, if at all. So we have an inner guide, our intuition, that knows what's best for us. And like I said, we learn to ignore it in a favor of outside opinions or fear of judgment. So building self-confidence means learning to listen to and trusting that inner voice. The more we trust our instincts, the more we make decisions based on that, the more we'll trust our instincts. It's like a cycle. If you don't trust your instincts and don't make decisions from that place, there's no way for you to trust your instincts. So trust your instincts, make decisions from that place so you can trust more your instincts. The more we trust our instincts, the stronger our self-confidence will become. The more we start to believe in our ability to handle whatever life throws at us, that is how we're going to build self-confidence. Building self-confidence, key to developing self-trust and self-love. Those are two ingredients. We build confidence by taking action, even when we're unsure. We celebrate our small wins, reframing failures as learning experiences, letting go of perfectionism, and trusting our inner voice. The more we practice these steps, the more we're going to strengthen our self-confidence and the easier it will become to trust and love ourselves. Let's commit to building our self-confidence together. Remember, self-confidence isn't something we're born with. It's something we develop through consistent action and self-reliance. As we grow in self-confidence, trust will grow as well. And when self-trust grows, that is when self-love will follow. I'll see you next time. And leave me a comment which of these practices you found helpful. And that's it for today's video. I'll see you next time. Take care and keep smiling. Ciao.